For years, Linda Ronstadt stayed silent about the people who caused her the most pain in her career. No headlines, no exposés, just quiet acceptance. But now, for reasons only she knows, she's finally broken that silence. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but with a clarity that comes only when time has taken everything else, even her voice. She chose 5 names. 5 stories she once thought she'd take to her grave. Stories that reveal the hidden fractures behind music's biggest legends. Everyone remembers that the Eagles were once just Linda's backup band, long before they became rock icons. What few know is that Linda handpicked them for her tour, not because she needed help, but because she believed in their potential. She saw substance where others saw inexperience, especially in Glenn Frey. In the early days, their partnership felt like genuine camaraderie. But when fame arrived, things changed. As the Eagles soared with hits like Hotel California, the industry quickly forgot their beginnings. Frey himself rarely acknowledged their time behind Linda, and in a 1977 interview dismissed it with a simple line, "We're on our own now." Linda didn't respond publicly. She didn't have to. The silence between them said enough. Invitations to perform together stopped. The final blow came when a planned reunion at the Hollywood Bowl was abruptly canceled. The Eagles wanted to close the show, effectively placing Linda as their opener, rewriting history in front of her. She refused. Not for pride, but because being erased from her own story was something she couldn't accept. Glenn's camp canceled. His last message to her? "I don't think the audience will be expecting you anymore." Linda later confided to a friend that she didn't hold anger toward Frey himself, but towards what he represented, the ease with which some rewrite their past once success arrives. When Glenn Frey passed in 2016, Linda said nothing publicly. Privately, she whispered just one thing: "I wish him peace. But I regret believing we were allies." Another name, another wound. Neil Young was once someone Linda admired deeply, not just for his music but for what he stood for: rebellion, justice, and standing up for the marginalized. Or so she believed. In 1976, both were invited to a benefit concert supporting immigrant workers. Linda came prepared with her emotional ballads, believing music could heal and inspire. But Neil dismissed her suggestions bluntly. "We're not here to sing salon music," he told her. To him, Linda's style didn't belong in the struggle. She stood backstage that night, not as a performer but as an outsider watching from the shadows. Later, in the dressing room, she cried, not out of rejection but from the realization that someone she thought stood for equality had denied her the right to speak in her own way. Neil would later take subtle jabs at her in interviews, questioning the courage of female artists who, in his words, didn't have the guts to confront real pain. Linda never answered back. When asked privately years later what she thought of Neil Young, she replied without hesitation, "He knows how to make people believe he's fighting for the underdog, even when he's the one silencing them." Linda's silence wasn't weakness. It was a choice, a scar hidden behind a voice that refused to beg for validation. Then there was Mick Jagger. What started as an exciting collaboration in the 1980s quickly soured when Linda's image was used without her consent in promotional material for a charity event. She was reduced to a nameless guest vocalist next to Mick's name. Linda said nothing, but after that, she rejected any further collaborations with him or the Rolling Stones. The final humiliation came when Jagger, during a TV appearance, joked that Linda looked better when she wasn't singing. The audience laughed. Everyone laughed. Except Linda. She wrote one simple line in her journal that night. "They say women should laugh when men joke, but if it's not funny, silence is my protest." Jagger would later invite her to sing on a track, on the condition she sexed up her image. Linda refused, telling her manager plainly, "If that's the requirement, I don't want to sing at all." Jagger, to Linda, represented something more dangerous than cruelty, power that never apologized and never even saw the need to. But perhaps Linda's deepest scar didn't come from the men who dismissed her. It came from a woman she once idolized, Joni Mitchell. Linda had always looked up to Joni, not just for her songwriting but for her independence, her ownership of her art. Linda, after all, interpreted songs written by others. For years, she carried the quiet fear that this made her lesser. In 1979, after performing Joni's song River to overwhelming applause, Linda approached her backstage, hoping for connection, maybe even quiet approval. Instead, Joni looked at her and said with a subtle, cutting tone, "I didn't realize my songs were so popular." That offhand comment wounded Linda more than any public insult ever could. When asked later about artists covering her work, Joni's answer was sharp. "I write from my blood. No one else can convey that." Linda read that quote, folded the magazine, and from that day forward never performed another Joni Mitchell song. Not out of spite, but because she refused to interpret music written by someone who made her question her own worth. Over the years, when Joni's name came up, Linda's response was always the same: neutral, polite, distant. Once, asked directly if she'd work with Joni again, Linda simply said, "I work with people who have both talent and kindness. One without the other isn't enough." Looking back, Linda admits Joni wasn't her enemy. She was something worse, a hero who made her doubt herself. For Linda Ronstadt, survival in the music industry wasn't about awards or fame. It was about preserving her dignity. Whether she was pushed aside by men intoxicated by power or quietly belittled by women she once admired, Linda carried each wound not as a burden, but as proof she didn't need to become like them to succeed. She didn't need to shout to be heard. And in her silence, Linda Ronstadt told the story no one else could. Her own.